The urgency of the first breath. The very first breath you take in the morning is not ordinary. It is the opening of a door, the striking of a match, the beginning of a story that will unfold with every choice you make until the sun sets again. That first breath holds more weight than most people realize because it sets the rhythm for everything that follows. Some begin it in silence, others in distraction, and many in hurry. Yet those who learn to claim this first moment for God discover that it is the most decisive part of their entire day. Think about the way mornings usually unfold. The alarm rings, the body resists, the mind already fills with tasks, worries, responsibilities. Some reach for their phone before they even rise from the bed, allowing messages, news, and demands to shape the tone of the day before they have spoken a single word to their Creator. That first breath then becomes a breath of anxiety, not peace, of pressure, not purpose. Without noticing, life is lived on someone else's terms, guided by the noise of the world instead of the whisper of God. But imagine something different. Imagine opening your eyes and before touching anything else, turning your heart upward. That first breath is offered back to the one who gave it. You whisper, even if silently, "Lord, this is your day. I am yours." In that single act, the atmosphere of the morning changes. The breath that could have carried worry now carries worship. The thoughts that could have wandered toward fear now bend toward faith. And from that first breath, the path of the day is redirected. This is why the urgency of the first breath cannot be ignored. It is not about ritual or legalism. It is about spiritual reality. The moment you wake, you are not neutral. You are stepping into a world where forces of stress, distraction, and doubt are already waiting. If you hesitate, they will rush in and seize your focus. But when you act quickly, when you dedicate that very first breath to God, you close the door on those invaders before they can enter. Prayer in that instant becomes a shield, a declaration that your heart will not be ruled by the chaos of the world, but by the peace of heaven. There is power in urgency. There is power in immediacy. The first breath is not casual. It is decisive. To delay is to surrender precious ground, but to act is to claim victory before the battle begins. Many wonder why their days spiral into stress, why their hearts feel heavy before noon, why their strength fades too soon. Often the answer is hidden in the way they began. A distracted beginning leads to a distracted day. A prayerless beginning leads to a powerless day. But a beginning in the presence of God leads to a day carried by His strength. Ask yourself, how many mornings have slipped through your fingers because you treated the first breath lightly? How many times have you allowed the weight of yesterday or the noise of today to dictate the atmosphere before you even rose from the bed? And more importantly, how many victories were lost because prayer was delayed, replaced, or ignored? The urgency of the first breath reminds us that life's greatest battles are not won in the noise of the afternoon, but in the silence of the dawn. This truth calls for a choice. It demands a decision that from this day forward, the very first breath will no longer be wasted. It will no longer be given to worry, to distraction, or to empty routine. It will belong to God. It will be the opening of a sacred dialogue, a moment when heaven is invited into the rhythm of earth. And as you make this choice, you will notice something remarkable. The day no longer controls you, because the first breath was claimed by the one who controls the day. The urgency of the first breath is not about adding one more task to your morning. It is about transforming the entire atmosphere of your life by starting where it matters most. One breath, one prayer, one surrender. That is all it takes to change the direction of your story before it even begins. The hidden war before sunrise. Long before the alarm sounds, before your eyes open, before your feet touch the ground, something is already happening. A silent war is being waged. A conflict that does not take place on battlefields of earth, but in the unseen realm of your heart and mind. This hidden war begins before the sun rises, and whether you realize it or not, you are part of it. Every thought, every emotion, every decision that will come today is shaped by what happens in this invisible arena. The question is not whether the battle exists, but whether you will face it armed or unarmed. When most people think of their mornings, they picture the routine: coffee brewing, showers running, schedules waiting. But beneath that routine lies a current of pressure. Doubt whispers before you stand up. Fear plants seeds before the day even begins. Worry waits at the door, ready to climb onto your shoulders the moment you open them. These are not random feelings. They are tactics in a war designed to steal your peace before the day has a chance to start. The enemy of your soul does not wait politely for you to wake up fully. He strikes in the fragile moments when your mind is still unguarded. He knows that if he can plant one thought of insecurity, one reminder of failure, one fear about the future, it can set the tone for hours to come. And how often do we carry these shadows with us through the day, simply because we did not confront them in prayer before sunrise? The hidden war is subtle, but its consequences are devastating. Prayer in the morning is not just a habit, it is warfare. It is drawing the line in the sand and declaring, "This mind belongs to God, this heart belongs to Him, and this day is covered by His presence." Without it, you may still walk through the hours, but you walk exposed. It is like stepping into a storm without shelter, or fighting a battle without armor. Eventually, the weight crushes you, not because you were weak, but because you were unprepared. Now picture the opposite. Imagine rising and, before anything else, lifting your heart to God. Imagine covering yourself in prayer so that before fear has a chance to speak, peace has already settled in. Before temptation knocks, strength is already standing guard. Before worry builds its case, faith has already declared victory. This is what it means to fight the hidden war before sunrise. It is not about avoiding battle, but about stepping into it with confidence that you are not alone and you are not unarmed. The scriptures remind us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces we cannot see. That truth is not distant or abstract. It is lived out every morning. You may not see the war, but you feel its weight in your chest, in your thoughts, in the way your heart shifts before the day has even begun. To ignore it is to lose ground. To face it in prayer is to rise above it with power that is not your own. This hidden war explains why mornings so often feel heavy, why your thoughts drift to what could go wrong, why anxiety seems sharper at dawn. But it also reveals why morning prayer is essential. It is the moment you step into the conflict not with fear, but with faith. Not with your strength, but with God's. And once you do, the unseen becomes powerless to control what God has already claimed. So when you wake tomorrow, remember this: before the world sees you, you are already seen by God. Before the day begins, the battle has begun, and the victory belongs to those who choose to pray before the first light touches the sky. Prayer as the reset of identity. Every day you wake up, the world is ready to tell you who you are. It will define you by your failures, by your performance, by your appearance, or by the labels others have placed upon you. If you are not careful, those voices will drown out the truth before the day even begins. That is why prayer in the morning is more than words spoken into silence. It is the deliberate act of resetting your identity in the presence of the one who created you. Think of how easily identity is distorted. One comment from a coworker, one reminder of a past mistake, one glance in the mirror that fuels insecurity, and suddenly you carry the weight of lies. Left unchecked, those lies shape your choices, your emotions, and your confidence. You begin the day believing you are not enough, not worthy, not loved. This is not by accident. The enemy of your soul knows that if he can confuse your identity, he can control your destiny. But when you enter prayer as the sun rises, everything shifts. You are no longer defined by yesterday's failures, but by God's mercy that is new this morning. You are not the sum of your mistakes, but the object of His forgiveness. In that sacred space, your soul is reminded, you are a child of God, chosen, loved, and secured. That truth becomes the foundation upon which the rest of the day is built. Prayer resets identity because it repositions the heart. It takes your eyes off the mirrors of this world and fixes them on the reflection of Christ. It silences the voices of comparison and awakens the voice of the Spirit that says, "You are mine." In that moment, labels fall away and clarity rises. You walk into the day no longer asking, "Who am I?" but declaring, "I know whose I am." Consider the power of starting each morning with this reset. Instead of waking weighed down by guilt, you rise clothed in grace. Instead of being driven by fear of rejection, you move with the confidence of divine acceptance. Instead of chasing approval from people, you rest in the approval of God. The day may still present challenges, but those challenges cannot redefine what prayer has already affirmed. Without this reset, identity drifts. You begin to measure yourself by achievements or failures, and your spirit grows restless. But with it, you find stability. You step into conversations with confidence, into decisions with courage, into trials with hope. Not because you are stronger in yourself, but because you are rooted in truth greater than yourself. Prayer as the reset of identity is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the safeguard that prevents you from living under the weight of false definitions. It is the daily reminder that you are not what the world says you are, not what your past says you are, not even what your fears say you are. You are who God says you are, and His voice has the final word. So tomorrow, when you rise and the world rushes in with its labels and demands, choose to pause. Choose to step into prayer and reset your identity in the presence of God. For when you know who you are in Him, no force in this world can make you forget it. Breaking the chain of yesterday. Every morning arrives with new light, yet many carry into it the shadows of yesterday. Old words echo, unresolved conflicts linger, mistakes replay, regrets press heavily upon the mind. The truth is, yesterday often refuses to release its grip unless you confront it. Without prayer, the chain of yesterday tightens around your spirit and drags the weight of the past into the promise of the present. That is why morning prayer is the key to breaking free. It is the sacred act of cutting ties with what was, so you can embrace what is. Think of how subtle yesterday's chain can be. A single harsh conversation repeats in your thoughts. A failure at work resurfaces before your first sip of coffee. A disappointment in yourself reopens before your feet touch the ground. You carry the guilt, the shame, the frustration, as though the day is already poisoned before it begins. But prayer severs this cycle. In prayer, yesterday is acknowledged but surrendered. It is confessed, placed before God, and released. The burden that seemed immovable becomes light when handed over to the one who promised rest for the weary. Breaking the chain of yesterday is not about erasing memory. It is about transforming perspective. Prayer takes what was meant to weigh you down and turns it into fuel for growth. Where there was guilt, God speaks forgiveness. Where there was regret, He brings renewal. Where there was failure, He plants hope. The chain is broken not because the past disappears, but because it no longer defines or controls the present moment. Without this release, the past poisons the day ahead. You respond to people not from today's truth, but from yesterday's wounds. You make decisions clouded by old fears. You carry bitterness that blocks joy. And slowly the days begin to blend into one long repetition of regret. But when prayer intervenes, the repetition is broken. The cycle ends. You walk into today not chained to what was, but free to step into what can be. Consider how different your mornings become when you refuse to let yesterday follow you. Instead of rehearsing failures, you rehearse God's promises. Instead of replaying pain, you declare His peace. Instead of allowing the past to steal your strength, you allow His Spirit to renew it. Each prayer becomes an act of release, a deliberate choice to travel light, to walk free, to begin again. This is the miracle of new mercies each morning. They are not theoretical, they are real. They are the divine reminder that you do not have to repeat yesterday's story. The pen has been placed back in your hand, and prayer is the ink that writes a new chapter. The chain is broken when you decide not to carry what God has already forgiven, healed, or redeemed. So as dawn rises, make this your declaration. Yesterday will not own today. The pain will not repeat. The guilt will not rule. The regret will not dictate. In prayer, I lay it all down. In prayer, I rise free. And once you live this truth, every morning becomes not a continuation of yesterday's weight, but the beginning of today's victory. The sacred silence of dawn. There is a moment in every morning when the world is still. Before traffic begins, before voices fill the air, before the demands of the day rise like a flood, there is silence. This silence is not emptiness. It is sacred. It is a window in which your heart can hear what is usually drowned out by noise. It is the most powerful moment to meet God, because nothing yet has claimed your attention, and the atmosphere of your soul is still soft, still receptive. To ignore this silence is to waste one of the greatest gifts the day offers. The sacred silence of dawn is unlike any other time. At night, distractions cling to you, replaying the stress of the day just finished. In the middle of the day, demands shout for attention, each one louder than the last. But at dawn, there is a pause, a breath between darkness and light, a threshold where heaven feels closer. Those who choose to pray in this silence discover a presence deeper than words. They encounter God not in the rush, but in the stillness. Why is silence so powerful? Because in silence, truth has space to rise. Your heart begins to recognize what it truly longs for. In silence, you can hear the whispers of the Spirit, guiding, correcting, comforting. Noise creates confusion, but silence creates clarity. And when prayer fills that silence, the ordinary moment becomes holy ground. Think of the times when silence felt uncomfortable. Many people fear quiet because it confronts them with their own thoughts, their own emptiness. They rush to fill it with music, screens, or conversation. But in doing so, they miss the healing that silence can bring. For in the sacred silence of dawn, God meets you where noise cannot reach. He speaks peace into the storm within, clarity into the fog of doubt, and assurance into the corners of fear. To enter this silence with prayer is to align yourself before the world intrudes. It is to step into the day already centered, already strengthened, already filled. You do not wait until chaos strikes to seek calm. You claim calm before chaos arrives. And that calm carries into every conversation, every decision, every challenge. Without this sacred silence, life feels fragmented. You react to the noise instead of shaping it. You drown in voices instead of hearing God's. But with it, you carry a stillness that no amount of noise can shake. You begin to live from the inside out, guided by the voice of God rather than pulled by the voices around you. The sacred silence of dawn is an invitation. It is not forced, it is offered. It is God saying, "Meet me before the world does." And when you answer, you discover that what seemed like empty stillness is actually overflowing with presence. Prayer at that hour does not feel rushed. It feels alive. It does not feel like duty. It feels like breath. So tomorrow, when the sky is still pale and the world still hushed, pause. Step into the silence not with fear, but with expectation. Let your prayer rise in that holy stillness, and you will find that the day no longer owns you. You own the day because you began it in the presence of God. The dialogue that shapes destiny. Prayer in the morning is not a monologue of hurried words spoken into the air. It is a dialogue, a conversation that carries the weight to shape the course of your destiny. Too often people treat prayer as a list of requests, a quick recitation before rushing into the day. But prayer at its deepest is communion. It is where you not only speak but also listen. It is where your voice rises to heaven, and heaven's voice descends into your heart. In that sacred exchange, the direction of your life is aligned with the purpose of God. Consider how most decisions are made when prayer is absent. Choices are driven by urgency, by pressure, by fear of what could go wrong. But when prayer becomes dialogue, those same decisions are guided by wisdom higher than your own. In the quiet of the morning, God speaks to the heart that listens. Sometimes it is correction, steering you away from paths that look appealing, but end in regret. Sometimes it is encouragement, lifting you when yesterday's failures still weigh heavy. And sometimes it is direction, a gentle nudge toward opportunities you would have missed without His voice. This dialogue is not reserved for prophets or saints of history. It is for anyone willing to pause and truly listen. God still speaks, not always with thunder or fire, but with a whisper that cuts deeper than noise. The problem is not His silence. The problem is our hurry. We rush through words and never wait for answers. We demand clarity but refuse the stillness required to receive it. Morning prayer is powerful because it creates the space where listening becomes possible. It is built choice by choice, day by day, and those choices are profoundly influenced by the voice you listen to in the morning. Listen only to fear, and you will live cautiously. Listen only to ambition, and you will live restlessly. But listen to God, and you will live purposefully. Morning prayer is where you choose whose voice defines your steps. Do not underestimate the power of this exchange. One word from God can redirect a lifetime. One whisper of encouragement can restore hope that years of pain tried to crush. One gentle correction can save you from regret that would have scarred your soul. That is the weight of this dialogue. It is not empty spirituality. It is the shaping of destiny in the stillness of dawn. So when you pray tomorrow, do not rush to fill the silence. Speak, yes, but then wait. Pause long enough for heaven to respond. The dialogue that begins in those sacred minutes will echo through the hours ahead, and as it does, you will discover that your life is not driven by chance, but shaped by the hand of God. The atmosphere you carry. Every person walks into a room carrying something unseen. It may not be visible to the eye, but it is felt. Some carry tension, filling the space with unease. Others carry discouragement, and their presence drains those around them. But there are also those who walk in with peace, with calm, with hope, and the atmosphere shifts because of them. This unseen reality is shaped before the day even begins. Morning prayer is what defines the atmosphere you carry into every moment. Think of how the absence of prayer affects your presence. Without prayer, the weight of yesterday's frustration leaks into today's conversations. Without prayer, stress becomes contagious, passed from one person to another like fire spreading through dry wood. Without prayer, insecurity shows up as defensiveness, bitterness, or silence. You may not intend to bring these things, but they travel with you when your spirit is unsettled. The truth is, you always carry something. The question is whether it will be the residue of the world or the fragrance of God's presence. Prayer in the morning clothes you with a different atmosphere. It places peace where there would have been pressure. It fills your tone with kindness where harshness might have ruled. It equips you with patience in moments where irritation would have taken over. The atmosphere changes not only inside you but around you, because what is in you inevitably overflows. People may not understand why they feel calmer in your presence, but it is because prayer has already prepared the ground you walk on. This is why Scripture often describes prayer as a covering. It is not merely words but a spiritual garment that you wear throughout the day. When you pray, you step out of your home clothed with peace, with faith, with strength. You carry something that others cannot give themselves, and without even speaking, your presence testifies of God's nearness. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine stepping into a heated discussion without the foundation of prayer. Imagine facing a demanding task while still carrying the residue of yesterday's exhaustion. Imagine entering a room filled with tension when your spirit has not been anchored. The result is predictable. The atmosphere overwhelms you instead of you shaping it. But when you have prayed, the opposite happens. You walk in, and instead of absorbing the chaos, you bring calm into it. The atmosphere you carry also influences how you perceive circumstances. Where others see obstacles, you see opportunities. Where others feel panic, you sense direction. Where others are paralyzed by fear, you move with quiet confidence. This difference is not because you are stronger than them, but because you started the day differently. Prayer gave you a lens of faith, and through that lens, the world looks different. Every morning gives you the choice of what you will carry. You can carry fear, stress, resentment, and let them shape your encounters, or you can carry peace, faith, and hope through the power of prayer. One choice spreads heaviness, the other spreads light. The world has enough heaviness. What it needs are men and women who carry the atmosphere of heaven wherever they go. So tomorrow, when you rise, remember that you are not just preparing yourself for survival. You are preparing the atmosphere you will bring into every place you enter. And when prayer has filled your spirit, you will discover that the atmosphere you carry has the power to shift not only your own life, but the lives of everyone you meet. Anchoring the mind against distraction. The human mind is restless by nature. Even before the day begins, it races through unfinished tasks, hidden worries, and countless what-ifs. Distraction does not wait for you to get out of bed. It greets you the moment you wake. Left unchecked, it will dictate the flow of your entire day, pulling your thoughts in 1,000 directions, leaving you exhausted before you have truly begun. This is why morning prayer is not only spiritual, it is strategic. It anchors the mind before distraction has the power to scatter it. Without prayer, the mind becomes like a ship without anchor, drifting wherever the winds of circumstance blow. A message on your phone shapes your mood. A memory from yesterday alters your confidence. An anxious thought about tomorrow steals today's peace. In that state, even simple tasks feel heavy, because your mind is never fully present. You are pulled, stretched, divided. But when you stop and anchor your thoughts in prayer, everything changes. Suddenly, your mind is not controlled by noise but by truth. Prayer realigns the inner dialogue. Instead of beginning the day rehearsing problems, you begin by declaring promises. Instead of replaying failures, you remember forgiveness. Prayer is the discipline that halts this waste. It filters what deserves your attention and what does not. It replaces endless spirals of thought with clear direction. It transforms noise into clarity, chaos into order. This anchoring is not about suppressing thoughts, it is about surrendering them. You place your mind before God and say, "Take what distracts me and give me what guides me." In that exchange, burdens are lifted and priorities become clear. The fog begins to lift, and what once felt overwhelming now feels manageable. The difference is not in the size of the tasks, but in the state of the mind that faces them. The power of an anchored mind cannot be overstated. It changes how you listen, how you respond, how you see the world. When distraction tries to pull you later in the day, you return to the anchor placed in prayer. When fear tries to scatter your focus, you return to the truth spoken in the silence of dawn. Anchoring the mind is not a one-time act. It is a foundation that holds steady even as storms rise. So ask yourself, will your mind today be a restless wanderer, or will it be a steady vessel? The answer depends on whether you anchor it in prayer. Tomorrow, when you wake and distraction comes rushing in, remember the power you hold. With one act of surrender, you can anchor your mind to God, and once anchored, no storm of distraction can drag you away. The Strength Exchange. Every morning reveals how fragile human strength truly is. You wake up carrying fatigue from yesterday, worries about today, and uncertainty about tomorrow. No matter how disciplined you are, no matter how determined, there comes a moment when your own strength is not enough. Life was never meant to be carried alone. This is why morning prayer is not just a ritual of words, but a divine exchange. It is the moment when weakness is surrendered and strength is received. When what you cannot do in your own power is infused with the power of God. Think about the weight you try to carry without this exchange. The deadlines, the responsibilities, the expectations of others, the hidden fears about the future. They add up until the soul is pressed under their load. You might push through with willpower for a while, but eventually cracks appear. Stress leaks out as anger, exhaustion hardens into apathy, fear paralyzes progress. These are the signs of a life carried in human strength alone. But prayer offers another way. In prayer, you approach God honestly. Lord, I cannot handle this day alone. And in that admission, something remarkable happens. You lay down the heavy load of self-reliance, and He places upon you the light yoke of His presence. The exchange is not symbolic. It is real. Where there was anxiety, peace begins to settle. Where there was weakness, resilience rises. Where there was confusion, clarity breaks through. What you give up in prayer is not lost. It is replaced with something infinitely greater. This strength is not about adrenaline or temporary motivation. It is a steady strength that endures, a spiritual fortitude that carries you when your own legs falter. It is the assurance that when you reach the end of yourself, you have not reached the end of God. Morning prayer reminds you that His mercies are new every morning because your need for strength is new every morning. Yesterday's grace was real, but today requires fresh supply. And prayer is where you receive it. Imagine facing today without this exchange. The burdens grow heavier, and though you may not collapse immediately, each day drains a little more until life feels like survival. Now imagine beginning the day differently, surrendering weakness and receiving strength before the battle even begins. You walk lighter, not because the challenges disappeared, but because you are no longer carrying them alone. You stand taller, not because you became stronger overnight, but because His strength has become yours. This exchange is the heartbeat of prayer. It is not about perfect words or long speeches. It is about honest surrender. The world teaches you to hide weakness, to mask it, to deny it. God invites you to bring it, to place it in His hands, and in return, to receive strength that cannot be shaken. That is why those who pray in the morning often walk with a calm that others cannot explain. They have tapped into a source beyond themselves. So tomorrow, when you rise and feel the familiar weight of life pressing in, remember this truth: you were not meant to carry it all. Step into prayer, lay down your weakness, and make the exchange. For when you do, you will discover that the strength you need is not found in pushing harder, but in surrendering sooner. Living as a vessel of peace. The world is starved for peace. Everywhere you turn, there is conflict, noise, division, and tension that weighs on hearts and fills the air with unrest. Step into a workplace, a home, or even a marketplace, and you will feel it, the unspoken heaviness that lingers. Yet into this restless world, God calls you to be more than a survivor of the chaos. He calls you to be a vessel of peace, someone whose very presence carries calm into storms and light into shadows. And the secret to becoming that vessel begins every morning in prayer. Without prayer, the turbulence of the world becomes the turbulence of your own soul. You absorb the frustration of others, mirror the anger around you, and carry anxiety like an invisible burden. When your spirit is unsettled, you cannot help but spread that same unrest. But when you rise in the morning and anchor yourself in God's presence, something shifts. His peace fills you, steadies you, and prepares you to walk through a world in conflict without being consumed by it. Living as a vessel of peace does not mean you will never face tension. It means you are equipped to walk into tension and not be shaken. When others lose patience, you remain calm. When others speak harshly, you answer with gentleness. When others despair, you offer hope. These responses are not natural, they are supernatural. They flow from a life that has been filled at dawn with the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. Consider the ripple effect of such a life. A single word of kindness can soften anger. A calm response can extinguish conflict before it grows. A steady presence can inspire courage in those who are paralyzed by fear. And all of it begins with prayer, because you cannot pour out what you have not first received. If you want to be a vessel of peace, you must first be filled with peace, and that filling happens in the sacred exchange of morning prayer. This calling is not for a select few, it is for every believer. The world does not need more noise, it needs more peace. It does not need more chaos, it needs more stability. And you are chosen to carry that, not because you are naturally calm, but because you are supernaturally equipped. The Spirit of God within you makes it possible to radiate peace even in the middle of storms. But notice this: peace is not passive, it is active. To live as a vessel of peace means you enter environments ready to shift them. You do not wait for calm to appear, you bring it. You do not depend on circumstances to be easy, you declare that even in difficulty, God's peace reigns. You become the reminder to others that there is a higher reality, one not bound by fear or division. Every morning, prayer invites you into this mission. It shapes your spirit so that you do not merely seek peace, but embody it. And as you live this way, people will notice. They may not have the words for it, but they will feel it. They will sense that being around you makes them lighter, calmer, stronger. That is not your power. It is the peace of God flowing through you. So choose tomorrow to rise as more than a participant in the world's unrest. Choose to be a vessel of peace, filled in the morning and poured out during the day. For in a world desperate for calm, the greatest gift you can bring is the peace that only God provides. Daily prayer as eternal investment. Every choice you make each day echoes further than you can see. Most people believe their mornings are ordinary, their prayers small, their words fleeting. Yet in the unseen, every prayer is an investment, a seed planted not just for today but for eternity. When you rise each morning and choose to pray, you are not only shaping the hours ahead, you are sowing into a legacy that stretches beyond your lifetime. Think of how easily we spend our energy on what fades. We chase achievements, wealth, recognition, all of which vanish like mist when the sun rises. But prayer is different. It never disappears. It is stored, remembered, treasured in the heart of God. Each whispered word, each act of surrender, each declaration of faith is a deposit into eternity. This is why Scripture declares that the prayers of the saints rise like incense before the throne. They are not lost. They are not ignored. They are eternal investments with rewards that surpass anything this world can offer. Daily prayer builds foundations that time cannot erode. It strengthens your faith today, but it also shapes generations after you. A parent's morning prayer covers children long after they leave the house. A believer's consistent intercession prepares paths for others they may never meet. Prayer ripples outward, touching lives beyond your vision, because God takes what you offer in secret and multiplies it openly. Morning prayer also shifts your perspective on what truly matters. When you invest daily in God's presence, you stop living only for temporary gain. You begin to see life through the lens of eternity. Your choices are no longer rushed by fear of missing out, but guided by confidence that what is eternal cannot be taken away. This changes how you endure trials, how you face loss, how you pursue purpose. You know that nothing given to God in prayer is ever wasted. Consider this: money can be lost, possessions can decay, titles can be forgotten. But the time you give to God in prayer is eternal treasure. It builds resilience in your spirit. It opens doors that human effort could not, and it stores reward in heaven that no thief can steal. To skip prayer is to skip investment. To pray daily is to build wealth that endures forever. This perspective also protects you from despair. On mornings when you feel weak, when your prayers seem small or dry, remember that no word is wasted. Even the simplest prayer is recorded, cherished, and transformed into eternal impact. What feels like a whisper here becomes a shout in eternity. What feels like a routine here becomes a legacy there. So when you wake tomorrow and the temptation comes to skip prayer, remind yourself, this is not just about surviving today. This is about investing in forever. This is about leaving behind a story of faith that echoes through time. Morning prayer is not a cost. It is the greatest return you will ever see. And when the final chapters of life close, it will not be the mornings spent in rush or worry that matter. It will be the mornings spent in prayer, investing in the eternal, shaping what only God could see. Those prayers will outlive you. They will become part of the eternal story written by your faith. The unshakable conclusion. From the first breath at dawn to the last thought before sleep, every day is a journey filled with unseen battles, countless choices, and moments that shape who you are becoming. And yet, what we have uncovered through this reflection is clear. The way you begin your day determines how you walk through it, and nothing secures the day more than morning prayer. This is not superstition, not ritual for the sake of routine. It is the difference between walking alone and walking with God. It is the dividing line between a day ruled by chaos and a day marked by peace. When you choose to skip prayer, you step into life unarmed, vulnerable to distraction, anxiety, and fear. But when you rise and place the first moments in God's hands, the entire course of the day bends toward strength, wisdom, and clarity. This simple yet profound act anchors your identity, breaks the grip of yesterday, and opens your spirit to hear the voice that truly matters. Morning prayer is not a suggestion, it is a necessity. It is your shield, your strength, your anchor, and your guide. The conclusion is unshakable. Prayer changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, how you face others, how you respond to trials, and how you walk into opportunities. It shapes the atmosphere you carry. It steadies your mind against distraction. It exchanges your weakness for divine strength. and it positions you as a vessel of peace in a restless world. Each prayer is more than a moment. It is an eternal investment, a seed planted in faith that will bear fruit both now and forever. And so, the call is simple but urgent. Do not treat this as inspiration to be remembered for a day and forgotten tomorrow. Let it become a turning point. Decide that you will never again enter a day without first entering prayer. Make it the rhythm of your mornings, the anchor of your soul, the foundation of your steps. For when you do, you will discover that every day, no matter how heavy, no matter how uncertain, is already covered by the presence of God. Today, you stand before a choice. Walk into the hours ahead, carrying the same old weight, or step into them clothed with peace, strengthened by grace, and guided by truth. The difference is one decision. Will you skip the prayer that changes everything, or will you claim the blessing that waits in the silence of dawn? The answer is not found in tomorrow, not in another season, not in another chance. The answer is now. Begin the day with God, and you will never again face a day the same way. This is the unshakable truth. Prayer first, victory follows.